So who's ever had a bad day? Yeah? Ever feel like life's throwing you a few lemons? Yeah. Notice I have boxing gloves. I know you all use it for underwriting here and there. Get some cases done. As a special needs mom, I box continuously. And the helmet, you don't want to see the dents on my head from banging my head against the wall. And understand, I spent 19 years in this business as a rep, as a top producer like you. I banged my head against the wall plenty. So I know how hard it is and how incredible it is to get to where you all are today. The toolbox is because we have to dig deep sometimes. Yes? Dig deep into our own personal toolbox, whether it's in your personal life or your professional, dealing with your spouse, your boss, or the client, to figure out, oh my God, how am I going to handle this one today? And so what I want to talk about today is not really so much about banging your head against the wall, but really, I think you all know that it's not about what life hands you, it's about what? What you do with them. So what I want to talk to you about today is really how to take these lemons and make lemonade. That's the key of today's presentation. And so by doing that, first I'll share a little story with you, which is that I have two children. My older daughter, Gretchen, has disabilities, very, very severe disabilities. How many people in the room have a child? Do you remember what it was like when your first one was born? Handing out the cigars, you were excited, you didn't know who to tell first and where to go with it. Our story was a little different because what we did was cry. We had grief, we had sadness, we had to kind of try and figure out how we're going to dig down in that toolbox and figure out what we're going to do next. She was born with a complete nervous system shutdown. She was twisted like a pretzel, her feet were up by her ears, she had no function whatsoever, she couldn't even swallow. So a very, very sick little girl. She spent 3 months in neonatal intensive care unit, and when we brought her home, they said, well, that's fine, but we hope you know you're bringing her home to die. For those of you who have not had an experience like this, or who can't even imagine what an experience like this could be, or having a child with a disability, I'd like to read a poem to you. This poem was written by Emily Pearl Kingsley. She's a staff writer, was a staff writer for 30 years at Sesame Street. And she wrote this after having a son born with very severe disabilities. But this will really be able to get you to help share this experience with me so we can go on. I'm often asked to describe the experience of raising a child with a disability, to try to help people who have not shared that unique experience to understand it and to imagine how it would feel. But it's like this. When you're going to have a baby, it's like planning a fabulous vacation trip to Italy. You buy a bunch of guidebooks, make your wonderful plans, the Colosseum, the Michelangelo, the gondolas in Venice. You may learn some handy phrases in Italian. It's really exciting. After months of eager anticipation, the day finally arrives. You pack your bags and off you go. Several hours later, the plane lands, and the flight attendant comes in and says, welcome to Holland. Holland? What do you mean Holland? I signed up for Italy. I'm supposed to be in Italy all my life. I dreamed of going to Italy. I learned the language. I learned the customs. Oh my God. We had to really dig down. We had to squeeze those lemons hard and try and soul search and figure out what we were going to do next. And in that soul searching, I found I also did some information searching. I needed to find out what was going to help my daughter. They didn't have a diagnosis. They didn't know how long she'd live. What am I going to do? I'm researching. I'm researching and I'm researching. And I developed a 4-drawer file cabinet full of information. I have to say, very little of it applied to Gretchen. But it had lots of information. One of the pieces of information is that there's a federal law that says if you leave someone with special needs anything over $2,000, they automatically lose eligibility for most government benefits. $2,000. There are 54 million American adults that have a disability. Think you could talk to a few of them? There are 23 million parents like myself who have at least one child between the ages of 5 and 16 with a disability. We've done research and we know that 60% of those children will need lifelong care. What that means is they need your planning. They need exactly what it is that you're doing as long as you do it right. The special needs community today is now considered the largest minority market in the country. Think about it. Special needs doesn't discriminate. Doesn't discriminate. Hits everybody. Hispanic, black, white, doesn't matter. It also doesn't discriminate in terms of income and assets. Special needs community has the same income, assets, and home ownership as the rest of the population. There's a myth that says, well, everybody's on government benefits, low income, we're not going to really talk to them. That's a myth. Not only that, but worldwide there are 500 million adults around the world that have disability. Isn't AVIVA the 5th largest insurer in the world? That should be important to this company. Remember what I said earlier about that $2,000 limit? Federal law, if you leave someone over $2,000, they automatically lose eligibility for most government benefits. The only thing that can alleviate and really help that law for these families is you, because the work you do is the only thing that stands between these children having lifetime care and quality of life, what you do. Now, some of you are probably thinking that if these families' kids are going to rely on government benefits, they perhaps may not be the best candidates for you from a market standpoint. But when I speak to government benefits, I'm talking two things. SSI, Supplemental Security Income, which has a maximum federally of $1,000 a month to provide food, shelter, and clothing, and it doesn't do much of that. And Medicaid, or in California, Medi-Cal. That's the health insurance. That is what we're really protecting. My girls will never qualify for health insurance on their own. When they age out of my policy, we're in big trouble. They are going to need that. In the special needs market, this is the one area that I don't care the richest family you're working with, they cannot self-insure. They just can't. It's too difficult. So, how do you protect government benefit eligibility? And by the way, when I say special needs child, so you know, I'm talking about a baby, a 10-year-old, or a 20-year-old, because we're always somebody's child. Okay? And in the special needs community, it's extremely true. The only way to protect government benefit eligibility is with something called a special needs trust. A special needs trust has only one function: protect government benefit eligibility for someone with special needs. It does nothing else. So how many folks in this room are thinking this may be a good market to enter? Okay. And if you don't, you're stupid. No. Just kidding. Just kidding. And what you have to keep in mind is that, you know, I've had my share of lemons thrown at me for sure. But at each pivotal point along the way, I found a way to go into my personal toolbox and make lemonade. But no matter what's going on with my kids, there's a couple of things that you have to remember. Like I said, one, it's not what life throws at you, it's what you do with it. Holland, we've all been there. It's really not a bad place. Just remember, there's wonderful experiences you can get from it. It's just what you do with it and how you recognize those experiences. We all have abilities. No matter how we're labeled with a disability, we all have abilities and we all can make a difference in this world. And in this particular business that you're all in, you have the best possibility to do that. And when making lemonade, no matter whose recipe you use, mine or someone else's, and no matter how sour those lemons may become, anything is possible. And when it is, let me tell you from personal experience, how sweet it is.